Hi, I'm Dr. Ariel Richer. I am Afro-Indigenous and white. My people are descendant of the Caribbeans from Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela. I'm also white on my dad's side, and I am one of the co-founders and co-directors of Urban Indigenous Collective. I'm also an assistant professor of social work at the University of Utah. I'm navigating being both Black and Indigenous and white, and these different identities, being in an urban space such as New York City. I think it really comes, kind of have to back up a little bit to where I was born. I was born in Canada. So ever since the beginning, I've been separated from my people. My mom was born in Trinidad and immigrated here when she was 18, and so did my grandma to California. So I didn't grow up in our specific lands and our specific environment, but I was not left wanting for our culture, our music, our heritage, our food. I have such wonderful memories of growing up every summer, being with my Trini grandma in Inglewood, peeling potatoes, getting ready to make the roti and the curried chicken, and watching the roti puff up on the hot plate. And then also, as I think back, we had our access to kind of like our spiritual practices. And as I'm older, I'm realizing it was a mix of Christianity and like African diaspora practices. And my grandma was like the leader of that for her group and her community. So I also got that access to her. So it did look a little bit different for me. And then moving to New York, I actually had family from Trinidad in Brooklyn. There's a thriving Caribbean community. I think a lot of people know that. We know it's known as like Little Caribbean. It's also the only place that you're going to get the best Trini food and Caribbean food. Do not look in Manhattan. You must go to Brooklyn. So I was not left wanting for that. And then was able to also connect with my literal family in Brooklyn. So that's kind of a little bit behind me, the navigating of both, but also understanding that I'm not, I don't come from these lands or Turtle Island or what's known as North America. So there is a little bit of that disconnection there. So we have the Caribbean diaspora in New York, but also being very aware and just cognizant that like this is not my land, this is not my people. So also coming with that humility into this space. And then also having the overlay that New York City is a global city. So you're going to have a lot of people from a lot of different places and our global Indigenous relatives there too. Coming together with Sutton and Jared was so helpful because we had these different backgrounds of recognition status, of our indigeneity, who we were mixed with, and just places that we grew up. So we were all able to bring in our connections to systems within New York City and then also within just the US as a nation, and bring that experience into how we wanted to create a new way of providing culturally tailored healthcare and research and this mechanism to be able to really support our community. And honestly, a little bit of it is selfish that we wanted something that was going to represent who we are, our group of folks, and the services that we weren't getting. So it was a very exciting time. We all were in grad school at the time as well. So as I mentioned, Sutton, Jared, and myself all having different backgrounds, different access to um, different types of healthcare. So like my people are from South America and the Caribbean. We don't have access to Indian Health Service. We don't have access to these treaty rights, which makes sense because we're from a different land. And also seeing just this global Indigenous population. So this was something that we wanted to embody within UIC, that we were going to expand beyond these colonial understandings of what borders are. Because at what point do you say, like, this is Mexico, this is the US, this is Canada, this is US? We know that we have tribes and nations that span all three of these countries, and they're also sovereign nations in and of themselves. So I honestly have never had access to culturally tailored services. There wasn't something specific for Indigenous Caribbean folks. I didn't even know that was something that I could ask for. So it's really exciting that we can embark on this venture with UIC to have services and have research and have it community-based. So for us, community-based participatory research, or CBPR, is this wonderful, I guess, container for just putting power back with the people, back to the people, power back to the people. We're now having all these services that are focused on majority white populations, and then it's an afterthought to think, oh, how do we tailor this for Black community? How do we tailor this for an Indigenous community? And that also makes Black and Indigenous there a monolith, not thinking about all of the different experiences that we have within there and the intersections. So this is how we frame all of our research. This is how we frame co-creation, data sovereignty, right to refusal, which means that if someone starts off researching, being a research participant or kind of engaging and then deciding like, oh, actually, this doesn't serve me anymore, that is celebrated and affirmed throughout the whole process. So for us, it's looked like since the very first day, when we launched at Indigenous Peoples Day, we had a tent, we had a table, we had some blankets, and we had a survey that was digital and some paper ones just in case we had some extra folks who wanted to fill it out. To my surprise, there were like 5 or 6 people in the tent at once filling out a paper survey to talk about their priorities for health and mental health in New York City. So this was just such confirmation that we were going about this in a good way. So despite us all being Indigenous, we weren't originally from New York City in the short term, or our people also weren't from New York City. So thinking through those land connections there. But we're in this space, we're using our skills. We've got some of this Western knowledge of public health and social work, and then tying it together with the Indigenous ways that we were taught growing up and how we are in community. So this is just community-based participatory research is our way of speaking with community, having focus groups, sitting and listening to what concerns are coming up, and that really is guiding the work that we're doing. It guided how we ended up in Midtown Manhattan for our office. I didn't dream of having a view of Port Authority bus terminal from the office, but it is ADA accessible. It connects to all the different lines. It's a central point, or essential as you can be, across all the boroughs. So again, it sounds like small ways of including community voice, but it makes such a big difference because we can convene folks. So it's also how we're going to be moving forward and thinking about what direct services, what group-based work we're going to be providing, what events we'll be providing, because we're hearing directly from community. And that's honestly the most effective way to have services and to offer programming for our community and our relatives. One of the outputs or the benefits of doing community-based research is being able to put all that information together. And so from the very beginning, we've termed something Community Health Forum. And it's ended in this wonderful report of 4 years of speaking with community to understand what their priorities of health and mental health services are. Also digging into what did you have access to, what didn't you have access to, what did you want to have access to? So kind of digging in a little bit into that. We did the usual understanding, what are your demographics, where are people coming from, about how much money are you making, that type of stuff. But then we also were able to hold 2 focus groups where we got to speak more in depth with folks. And a really interesting thing that came from that was talking about spirituality, healing, and the focus on food. We also talked about connection to water. So that is getting our wheels turning, thinking about, oh, this is what community wants to talk about. We want to share winter stories. We want to get together, come into the space and share food, bring it from all of our respective communities. And that's one of the exciting parts about being in New York City is you have, of course, the tribes who have always been here, and then you have the people who have come here and are coming from different spaces and are able to share these practices, their stories, their food in a communal way. I think that was one of the things that was really missing, that folks were saying, was that they missed the land that they were on, they missed that connection, and they missed the spiritual practices. So I'm really excited for what we'll be able to offer. Some people had mentioned a canoe and waterways tour that they had done with one of our wonderful Shinnecock relatives. So exciting. So hoping that maybe we can come back to that. So it highlights the loss and some of the sad things that are happening, but it also highlights all of the resilience, all of the wonderful things that we are excited about and why we come together. Another interesting thing from the Community Health Forum was, seeing that 50% of the respondents turned to regular spiritual practices to maintain their health. So again, that's also going to inform how we offer holistic services that do focus on substance use, that do focus on mental health in this tradition or in this Western form that we know. So like therapy, social work, group work, but then also being able to bring in our elders and our spiritual leaders, because that is what community is asking for. So we really see culture as prevention, culture as protection, and just this extra barrier for the things that I didn't have when I first moved to the city when I was 22. So was very young, was in over my head, and all these things that I wish I had, and a community center to be able to go to. We opened our first community space in July 2023. It's so exciting that we can gather folks in one space. I will say the space is doing double and triple duty. It is our office. You can meet with the office manager. You can schedule co-working times there. We do offer this space to other Native organizations free to be able to host different events. So again, it's working double, triple overtime in this what we want the space to do, but having a space in New York City is such prime because it costs so much. So that's one of the first ways that we can directly give back to other organizations to be able to host things there. We've had plenty of karaoke nights there, watching football games, sharing food, watching movies, all these wonderful, exciting opportunities to just gather together. Because again, from the Community Health Forum, people were saying, they're like, I don't care what I come in for. I don't care what we're talking about. Like if it's a book club, if it's sharing stories, I just want to be in community with other people. And I didn't have that coming to the city. So it's really nice after 10 years that I'm finally getting that. So I love the work that we're doing. I love being able to convene folks, and it's what really keeps me going. So as someone who embodies a lot of different identities, specifically racial identities, being Afro-Indigenous and white, and they're all very important to me. I wouldn't leave any of them behind, because I wouldn't leave either my parents or any of my ancestors behind. So I think that's something that I have struggled with in the past, is not being enough of any of them, being Indigenous enough, being Black enough, being white enough. And this year, I think I'm finally just settled in it. I'm happy with who I am. I'm excited that I can speak from this perspective, because there are so many folks who don't get to talk about being mixed and share those very similar sentiments about not being enough. So if I can just share that you are enough, just as you are, and you deserve to be in this space. You deserve to talk about your Blackness. You deserve to talk about your indigeneity. And yeah, that's it.